Okay, so we're going to come together and I'm going to ask you to tell me what level you put these on, right? And then if there's a discrepancy, we're going to talk about it. Now, if it's a 1 and a 2, you know, if you're that close, the discussion will be short, or a 2 and a 3. But if there's a 1 and a 3, then that needs to be a really in-depth conversation about why. When we talk about it, I want you to have your matrix handy and tell me which statements there, which bullets there made you decide that it is a 3 versus a 1. Okay? I'm not sure, did anybody, raise your hand, you got a 4? Okay, pretty number. You have 1 4?
Let's start with that one.
All right, so on this sheet,
We thought they were gone.
I have a purple under here because I'm afraid this is gonna bleed out, so be careful. On this sheet, I don't know if you noticed, but that math is on one side and science is on the other. Later. If you didn't do it that way, that's fine. Just be sure when I ask about the math question, you're answering the math question, okay? And I don't know what numbers. I have sheets up here that tell me this.
Can you show the question?
That's just too much more.
Just have it out already.
I have them, but I'm not sure.
What numbers they are?
Yeah.
Good program.
So,
I can't remember. The numbers are right there.
I tell you what, the first problem I see up here is the science. So I'm going to flip over to science, and it's question number 15. So raise your hand if you got a depth of DOK 1. For number 15, science, DOK 1, there's 1, 2. DOK 2.
Well, how many hands do you want? One per group?
One per group. Okay, 1. So, DOK 2? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups? DOK 3? 2? And DOK 4? Okay, so the issue here, we have a 1 and we have some 3s.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What about the ones who could not answer that?
Then just don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay.
You don't.
So who put the depth of knowledge 1? Okay, explain to us, you're gonna have to be really quiet here. Explain to us why that's depth of knowledge 1 by telling us which descriptor you chose.
Does the mayor look at the right one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We said that it was DOK 1 analyzed.
DOK 1 analyze.
Because we're retrieving information from the draft, and it was just basic information.
Okay, so it appears that they're retrieving information from the graph only. So that would be 1. So who had the 3s? Melissa, why is it a 3?
We,
3, what
me
level of
and Bree,
blues?
Bree and I,
What level on blues?
we said level 3, analyze. Because we said that you had to analyze and,
Hang on, Melissa. Everybody should be listening to her because this is the important part of this. Trying to figure out the differences in what you're thinking so that we can come to consensus. Okay, so no talking. Melissa has the floor.
okay, so when we were looking at the question, we determined that it was a DOK 3 analyze because under the analyze, it said to analyze and draw conclusions from data and citing evidence. So to be able to answer this question, Bree and I looked at that we would have to calculate the densities, which means we have to know the formula for density, or look on the cheat sheet. To calculate density, and then use those to calculate, look down here and find whichever one was closest to 2.7.
So it's
to be able
more,
to answer the question.
so it's more than just reading.
So to us, it was a lot of in-depth thinking to answer, not just, oh, it's right here. Now, the densities would have been there, and all we would have had to do is match, and we could
Okay.
see the logo.
Comment, Rochelle?
Yes, if she just, sorry, on to science, or that level. If they were given a chart that had that information, then you would then just be looking and recalling.
Yes,
Right,
that's
right.
what we were saying.
Right.
So if she took it, so they actually had to calculate,
Well, you do have calculators.
but
what
so
was
you
the
could have just looked
question?
at a chart to see the density of carbon.
So the question is, for an investigation, a student records data from 4 unknown substances, blank densities. The student then calculates the densities of the unknown substance and compares them with the table of densities on the known substances below. And then it gives you the known substance. Which unknown substance is most likely carbon? And it tells you carbon's density is 2.27.
Right.
So then you would have to calculate these 4 unknowns on the one closest to 2.7 to then compare. And we thought that was,
Okay, so they are sticking with their 3. Do the ones want to change?
Perhaps can the ones,
to 3.
can the ones explain why they say 1?
In a minute. What did you say, Kim?
Please add another tick mark to 3. We agreed that it was a 3.
From where were
She
you already?
didn't answer.
We were on the, we were looking at
There's
the
a math
wrong-
question
We're
that
looking
you
at the
said.
wrong question.
So they were.
Okay, so Rochelle,
Ma'am,
you wanted to add something?
We're on
no,
board
I had
now.
asked if someone who chose 1 would like to explain why they chose 1.
Okay, I think I said
We
that.
won't call you out or
Yeah,
anything.
I messed up in explaining it, explained for the wrong one. We were looking at one
math one?
applied.
One apply.
Only because they were doing just a single step problem. And since it was just, the information's already given to them, that we thought it was very simple after they did that, just to compare.
So after the step of calculating, it's a very simple compare? Okay. What do y'all think? One or a 2, not a 3? Yes, ma'am?
I want to start.
Tell me.
Well, from a math point, I would see it as going into a level 2 to 3. Not really in 1 because the students, clearly this has to be the 8th grade one, have to actually find the density. So yes, they have to apply to the formula that's given. Is the formula given on the
On
star?
the chart, yes.
Okay. They have to understand, mass and volume other than just seeing the words mass and volume. And then they have to take their calculations that should be accurate and then apply it to the chart that is given. So for some that might say it's easy comparison, but you have a lot of ones and, tens and hundreds up there to where it could be a slip of a number or a calculation.
Okay, so you're thinking
Yeah, they have to understand places, so I'm thinking it's a 2 or a 3.
2 or 3?
It's 2 pushing 3. I can definitely see the 3 though for multi-step, because it's not just one step. And
Okay,
you have to find the density of all of those, not just one.
that's true. Pam?
The reason we think it's not 3 is because if you look at it, it says design investigation, no. Conduct a designed investigation, no. Concepts to solve non-routine problems, that's a routine problem.
it's the number 3, analyze.
3.
Yes.
Analyze, not apply.
Oh, my bad, sorry.
So what does that say?
So
Yep,
you-
I was looking at the wrong one.
So you said it was analyze and,
Level 3, analyze.
no, the specific, was it maybe analyze and draw conclusions?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I was just saying, yeah, we thought it was analyze and compare and contrast figures or data.
Which is, which level?
That's 2.
Level 2, analyze and compare data.
2 to 3. 2.5.
2 to 2.
2.5.
2 to 2.
Yeah, I've heard Quentin say 2.5. I think he said 2.1.
No, this is straight up 2.
Yeah, 2.
There's no,
And she said in regards to what he was saying.
So 2 to 3,
2 or 3.
Two or three?
Two or two.
Two.
Less than three.
Well,
Yeah.
the reason we chose 2 is because it says solve routine problems.
We chose apply to.
Apply to. Solve routine problems,
Yeah.
and then retrieve information from a table.
Where are you looking?
See, and we went immediately under that.
Apply
Level 2 apply.
To what, Tanya?
Ours says retrieve information from a table, graph, or figure and use it to solve a problem requiring multiple steps.
So it
No.
doesn't,
But you're not retrieving
Right.
it.
It's reversed.
You have to calculate it.
Because first you retrieve and then calculate, and here you calculate and then compare.
retrieving and calculating would be like looking at a graph for speed and taking that.
One at a time, please. Let Quentin have score.
I was gonna say, that'd be like taking a graph for speed and taking that information and calculating acceleration. That's different than this right here.
True.
It's not, you saying how? Because you're looking at a graph for speed and going, okay, at this time, I get this information, and at this time, I get this information, and then calculating acceleration based off that. And that actually may be close to a 3 or a 3 at that point. But that's different than what this is asking you to do. You're calculating the simple form. To me, it's simple form, especially since it's given. You're not having to retrieve that information from anywhere. It's right there. And then they're comparing that across tables. That's not the same.
Basically, you're not using these numbers from this graph to solve the problem above it.
But I am, because
Wait. One at a time, correct?
I was saying that, you were saying that you're, like, the way you're saying it is like you're using these numbers to solve the
She doesn't know what these numbers are. You're
The
pointing.
numbers in the table below, under densities of some unknown, known substances, you're saying you're using that data to do calculations. How are you using that data to do calculations?
so I'm a student. The first thing that I'm gonna look at is it says which unknown substance is most likely carbon. I'm gonna look up the carbon and I'm gonna say, I'm gonna need to find, my answer needs to be 2.27.
Or close to it.
And so I'm gonna go to that first one and try it, the second one and try it, and I'm gonna be a student, and if I get it on that second one, I'm gonna say woohoo, and I'm done. So I did go to my graph first, or my table first, to pull my information.
Okay.
You just didn't use that number to do
I
that.
was
You just-
thinking that it's basically, if we thought of this as a math, there's 4 math problems, and then they're saying calcium is choose A, carbon is B. So basically, they have answer choices, they're just calculating and seeing which one matches it. So it's basically,
Similar to multiple
You have to do the
choice.
math to find out which.
yeah.
Why did we cut the multiple choice off? Like with 2?
Yes.
Tim, you had a comment, Mark?
We went with DOK 3, analyze, because you're comparing information across or within data sets.
Cross or within data
Yes,
sets.
or sets.
And those 2 tables are data sets. So consensus would be 2 to 3?
Let's just agree to disagree.
2 to 3? Somebody still want to stick with 1?
Rock, paper, scissors.
As long as we're like, between 2 and 3, and we're not real clear yet,
You good?
that's good. That you're on the right track here. You're beginning to be able to analyze these with with Hess's depth of knowledge matrix, which is not easy to do, by the way. You just realize that, right? Okay.
Is there an official answer?
Yeah.
I do have the official answer, but I don't have it with me.
You're killing us.
So now let's look at science 48, just because it's on the top of my stack here. Science 48.
Looks like this.
It's
Beakers. 3 beakers.
3 beakers.
Oh, y'all did.
This is the question on the board.
Science number 48. Okay, how many DOK 1? DOK, I had a DOK 1? Okay. DOK, which level of bloom? Remember? DOK 2? Okay, just one hand per group, please. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm just gonna put the number. DOK 3. 3. What level of blooms for the 3s?
Analyze.
Okay, what level of blooms for the 2s?
We had
Understand?
Which is comprehension, that second level? Okay, all right. So, we still have ones, twos, and threes, but predominantly twos, as in the other item, okay? So, let's go to the ones. Who are the ones? Okay, tell us why, and read the descriptor.
So, observable changes, and then you had the other part of the question, what's the student informed that a chemical reaction occurred, what's the evidence? And for me, that was just, recalling, like they just had to know what is evidence of a chemical reaction
What is the evidence?
and compare it. The evidence here, would be color change.
Color change?
Precipitate. Right, yeah, I agree with you.
Now, we can't have a private conversation here, because everybody out here is saying, what are they talking about? All right, loud, or,
Well, so Quentin's saying, well, what about, so he's unclear about whether or not a precipitate's forming, because he's wondering if it's just two liquids forming precipitate.
Well, no, it's just two liquids where formation of precipitate.
Okay,
So
so
it's just,
for me, when I looked at this problem, I just saw color change.
okay, so that's why you put a 1. Okay, so who are the threes? Okay, I need somebody to tell me why, Kim.
Because we believed it to be analyzing and comparing information, and drawing conclusions from the picture.
Okay, comparing information and drawing conclusions. So who are my other threes? Is that your rationale also?
Yeah, compare and contrast the observations.
Compare and contrast? Candace?
Oh, the other thing I'm seeing in the problem now is that it labels the substances. So there's the other.
So that's why it's a 1, so I was sticking with the 1. Okay, who are my twos? Okay, Tanya, tell me why.
We said you're making basic inferences or logical predictions from data or observations.
Yes.
So you have the picture there and you're just
Making observations.
inference, Yeah, on
Okay.
observations.
So, Jen?
Actually compare and contrast is in analyze level 2 that I was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Is that even a 3?
No, I'm no longer.
No longer a 3.
Well, I think I raised my hand for the same thing though,
Okay,
for number 2.
so you're now a 2.
I'll just count twice.
I marked you out. No offense. Okay, so I'm concerned about the 1s and the 3s. All right, so let's have a conversation about the 1s and the 3s. Do the 1s want to move up? Do the 3s, other than Jen, want to move down? Who are my other 3s? Okay, Melissa.
So the question states, the student inferred that a chemical reaction occurred. What evidence supports this inference?
Yes.
So when we looked, that's a lot of inferring by looking at those pictures. And that's why we came up with the DOK analyze, because it says analyze and draw conclusions from data, citing evidence.
Citing
And it's wanting you to
Well, we didn't have
find
the
evidence that
question.
supports.
We didn't have the question on none of our papers.
It was up on the board. You weren't.
That's where we're so lost.
You're back.
You're just very absent. You just.
She'd like to be back on 3.
So back to 3. So citing the evidence, but the evidence would be given in that multiple choice. You have to choose the correct one.
And use your inferencing skills, which are higher.
So you're sticking with 3.
All right.
So my 1s again. Okay, moving up, sticking with
We
it.
can see where maybe it would.
We
it could
cannot
fit-
talk while they're talking.
We can see where maybe it would fit into level 2 understand if you're looking at make basic inferences or predictions from data and observations.
And I'm guessing Brandon agrees with you, since he made a gesture, which was what?
He did the nod.
Didn't you hit something? Yeah, that means good, right? Okay. All right, so a 2-ish? 1.5 to 2 or 2.5 to 3?
2.5 to 3.
2.5 to 3?
Q, you don't count.
I don't.
We just
I need to-
covered the outlier.
I'm gonna be quiet.
Okay, let's remember that this is the 8th grade test, and these are students, okay? So don't use your teacher knowledge, okay? They have had instruction, right? But not years of instruction that you have had, okay? So you may be able to look at that and say, that's just recall, because it is for you. But for a student or a non-science person, it may be analyze or apply or something else. Okay, so keeping that in mind, I'm gonna leave the ones of ones or 2.
They said they moved up to a 2.
You moved up to a 2?
I also noticed that it's also kind of like by grade level, because we had a different perspective than our elementary partners over here, because we cohorts with them, if that's even the right word. I'm trying to sound smart. We had a totally different mentality on it, on what the question was talking about. And then Daniel was like, oh, I see your point, and same with Ashley. So I mean, it's also like the different levels that we teach.
So
Other
Tanya,
than just being a parent, you
did y'all
know.
say 3?
No, we did not.
No, just in general, it's a lot of theirs versus ours. We didn't try to cheat, we try to, you
Oh, I
know,
understand, it's the conversation that's important here.
look at
Okay.
how we thought about something.
It's the conversation that's important. So one of the ones, or the one, has moved up to a 2. Okay, so now we're gonna switch to some math items. We'll go back to science soon. We're not gonna do them all because we don't have time, and I do want y'all to have planning time today. So math items, the first one I see is number 20. I'm gonna do math on this page we just led through. That might be better.
Greta.
About Greta, that's one here.
Thank you.
We don't have a math 20.
Okay, you should, baby.
Should say
It says, yes.
Greta is 1.5 meters tall.
Yeah, Greta is 1.5 meters tall, which is the following is equivalent to 1.5 meters. Any ones? 1, 2, 3. Okay, y'all be quiet so I can count. I'm over now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Kim, is your hand up? No, sorry. Okay, 7 ones. What level?
Understand.
Understand.
Yes, we do say everyone, I'm sorry.
Any 2s? Okay, 2 2s. What level?
We had
Analyze. Any 3s? Okay, so it's between a 1 and a 2. So the 2s, I want you to explain to us why it's a 2 and not a 1. Brenda?
The reason why we were saying 2, it was an assumption. We didn't actually have the multiple choices. But since it said which one is equivalent to, we assumed that ABCD had some other types of fractions that you would have to do some kind of math skills with. Either an improper fraction or perhaps different units.
Yeah, centimeter.
So it was all assumptions that led us to, you're going to have to do some kind of mathematical work in order. You can't just go eeny, meeny, miny.
Okay. So if it was, if the choices were like 1 and 2/4, 1 and 3/5, that would be different than if the choices were 1 and, or 15, whatever that would be in metrics, all right? That would be different. Yes, ma'am.
I want to explain why we got a 1.
Why'd you get a 1?
Okay. So we said 1 for understand. Again, going off the inference since we did not have the questions, it could have been fractions. And understand simply says represent math relationships in words, pictures, or symbols.
Represent math relationships in words, pictures, or symbols.
So again, in our mind, we're only inferring if they had fractions. That would simply be a picture. Maybe in words, maybe they did something odd there.
Okay. Okay, so,
I was asking Brenda which blooms.
yeah, which balloons?
We had said understand.
Understand? Yes. I have that written down.
What bullet point feeling is there?
Okay, any other conversation on this? So we really don't know because typically I had the girls cut off the answers. So we really don't know yet. Okay, but one or two-ish, depending on what the answers are. If the answers were changing to a different unit of the metric system, then that would probably be maybe a 2.
Yeah.
This is grade 8. When do they begin making metric conversions in math? I know they do it in grade 6. Fourth, do they begin it?
Fifth.
They did in 4th, but the OTs, they began it in 3rd.
But that's still apply one.
That's apply 1.
Conversion between metric units is apply one.
Yeah. So if it were metric, it may still be a 1. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna leave this like it is. One more math and we'll go back to science. We'll do the next one, number 16. A firefighter uses equipment that is 60 pounds. The firefighter weighs X pounds. Which equation can be used to find T, the total weight of both the firefighter and his equipment in pounds? So they're giving them equations down there. He weighs 60 pounds, or, the equipment weighs 60 pounds, he weighs X. What would that equation look like?
Sixty plus X.
60
Is it
times X?
multiplied? Yes. Adding.
60 times or 60 plus?
Adding.
Plus. How many firefighters are there?
One.
Just the one. Just the one.
Solving
X plus 60. So X plus 60 or 60 plus X? Okay, so that's what one of the choices should be.
Wait,
Okay?
what?
That's what one of the multiple choices should be. 60 plus X, what you
Oh,
said.
okay.
So, how many ones? One person per group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What level 1?
Apply.
Apply. Okay.
Apply.
How many 2s? 1, 2. Okay, tell us what level.
2.
One.
Apply.
Apply. So why is that a 2? Other than the fact that
Select a procedure according to criteria and performance.
select a procedure, could that be select a procedure depending upon what the answer choices are? Could they have written 60x, which is multiplication? Could they have written 60 minus x as a choice? Yes.
But yeah,
So
you're not performing it.
they're not performing it. Read your criteria again.
Oh. Select a procedure according to criteria and performance.
And perform it, that last part, and perform it. So you would cut it off of that. Were you the 1 or the 2? You were the 2? You want to stick with 2 or go down to 1?
Flexible.
And your partner?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so that's probably a 1?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna do one more math, and we're gonna go back to science. How about 18? It says,
Wait, which one?
18 math. It says, the sum of the measures of two angles is 183 and 6/10 degrees. One angle has a measure of
54.
54 degrees. What is M, the measure in the degrees of the second angle? How many ones? One per group.
Oh, sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What level?
Understand.
We put
I'm on understand.
We put understand.
Understand? How many 2s?
so I think it's a 1.
I think it's a 1. We'll do one more math then, that was so much fun. Okay, let me pick a different sheet.
To all be like that.
Yes, but then we were between understand
Let's do
and
17.
apply.
17.
True.
Yeah, we are.
Since it's an inequality.
Understand.
Okay, we're gonna look at 17 and then we'll go back to science. All right. ACO is selling books for $12 each. She wants to make more than $180 in book sales. The inequality 12B is greater than 180 can be used to determine the number of books B she must sell in order to meet her goal. Which number line, we don't have them, I'm sorry, best represents the solution to the inequality? Ones? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What level?
Analyze.
Twos?
Understand.
1, 2, 3, 4 twos. What level?
Analyze.
Okay, so tell me why it's a level 2. Who are my twos? Okay, I saw him first. Tell me why it's a level 2.
We put, it's a level 2 because they're gonna have to select appropriate graph and organize and display data.
Select the appropriate graph
And interpret data from a simple graph.
and interpret data from a simple graph. And a number line is a graph. 1. Okay, what was your question, Jean?
Oh, well, we talked to you about it, we were saying apply and analyze, I didn't raise my hand for the apply too. Because
Okay.
you did both.
Okay, so twos, who are my twos? Were you a 2?
Yes.
All right, so who are my 1s? Okay, Quentin.
Oh, well, we said analyze as well, but my question for Tim was, for it to be 2, the second half of that statement says you have to organize and display the data. There's no organization or display.
Interpret data from a simple graph.
Interpret.
Is it or and?
Or,
It's
it could be or, I said and first, but it could be or.
Because, well, when you look at one, it says identify whether specific information is contained in graphic representation number line. Does the number line contain the inequality, or the inequality?
Yes.
So the question is, does number line contain the inequality? That's one to us.
Don't they have to solve it first?
Yes?
Yes.
So wouldn't that be apply
Right.
instead of analyze?
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
A
it's
1
both.
apply or a 2 apply?
To apply?
2 apply, Melissa?
Do they
We
have to?
had 1 understand
Wow.
Because?
because evaluating an expression, because an expression doesn't have an equal sign, that's an inequality. And it's a 1, the next one says solve a 1-step problem. It's a 1-step problem. And then locating points on a number grid or a number line. So we say 1 understand.
Huh.
1 understand, you math people, those are science, you math people, a 1 with an expression, okay, as compared to a 2 with an inequality. Pam?
Is that considered an expression? That's an inequality.
Well, she said, what she read in her descriptor was an expression.
But this is an inequality.
Let's take the solve a 1-step problem. Let's not get stuck on that first one. Let's
A
take
1-step
a
problem in an
1-step problem.
expression is like 3 times x.
12 times x.
But nothing over here greater than, less than, equal. That's an inequality, which kind of bumps it up, okay? So another comment? Rochelle?
When we wrote it down, we went with level 1 analyze, but
Let's listen to Rochelle.
we
please.
said retrieve information from a table or graph.
So you're still a number 1?
Yes.
Retrieve information from a table or a graph. Pam?
But they're not retrieving information from the table, they're finding an answer and converting that answer into a model of the answer.
So they're not retrieving, they're solving,
Yes.
Then
and
finding
then finding the appropriate graph.
a model that represents their answer.
So, let's see, we had 4 2s, are I sticking to 2?
Would you?
Okay, we had 8 1, or 6 1s, are y'all sticking to 1?
I'm going to go 1.5.
1.5?
I want to roll the rings.
Understand, because we're gonna interpret that.
I really, if it's a 1, it's a 1 that's pretty close to a 2. Because I'm gonna tell you, solving any equations is not something that's a whole lot of fun for kids.
So,
Okay.
I'm sorry, they're saying analyze one?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yes.
Read the analyze to me.
It says retrieve information from a table, which is not it. Identify whether specific information is contained in the graphic,
It could be that one, that's what.
possibly. And then it says identify a pattern, and that's not it.
I think the
Well,
only
I
thing
have
that
a
raises it
question.
up is because you have to solve it.
I have a question.
Okay.
Do you have to solve it?
Yes.
Because I could take,
Yes.
Not if there's.
I could take, since I have to sell 12 books, I know my slope is gonna be by 12.
It has to be greater than.
This is not bivariate.
No, it has to be greater
It's on
than.
a number line. This is univariate.
It's gonna be solved on the number.
Oh, I did not think.
You gotta graph it, solve it.
Welcome to seventh grade, Rochelle. Welcome to seventh grade.
One conversation at a time. I think, Craig, you also had something to say?
No,
No, I was
she's
just
got it
thinking of
now.
a graph, never mind.
All right.
Yeah,
So,
picturing something.
Yes.
She's doing actual like slow grabs, what she was looking at.
hush, please. 1.8, there were,
1.8, what?
6 on 1.
Brown?
Wait, what?
These are not rational numbers. These are descriptors.
We're talking about decimals
But these are
between 1 and
descriptors.
2.
So how many ones are there now?
How many are 1? How many stick into 1? 1.
One person is
Okay. So I'll change.
The outlier again.
That makes that
Wait.
9.
Are we sticking to one?
No.
Oh, she says she.
She's so loyal.
Okay, so, what do you notice about the math items so far?
They're all
Melissa?
I noticed when we were going through the math problems that they are very low-level questions.
Many of them are. This is
Many.
grade 6.
I thought I was
They
doing
may be
it.
high on the level of blooms, like higher on the level of blooms, but they're still very low depth of knowledge.
I agree.
I thought I was doing it wrong since I had so many ones.
So many lows, yeah. Okay, let's do one more science.
40.
Y'all have a preference?
40.
40?
Uh-oh, that means there's a hard.
How come?
The amount that a student has to pass is so low, yet these are such low level depth of knowledge.
Honey, I am not DEA and I cannot answer that question. I have my opinion, which I'm not gonna state. I don't know. Okay, one conversation at a time, please. All right, so we're looking at number 40 on the science side.
Just to make a difference.
Okay, I'll read it to you if you'll not talk while I'm reading. Hey, who keeps talking? I'm just gonna have to beat you with a noodle or something. Jean is holding her mouth shut. Okay, number 40. Copper compounds are used in large amounts to control the growth of algae and other aquatic plants. Copper interferes with the photosynthesis in these organisms. What would be the most likely result of an accidental spill of these compounds in an aquatic environment? 1s, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What level?
Understand?
Understand.
3. 1, 2, 3. What level?
Evaluate.
Evaluate. Wow. Okay, so we need to talk. So,
Wait, that's real high.
the 2s, who are my 2s? Okay, Kim, explain to us why it's a 2. And y'all listen, don't talk.
We went with summarize results or concepts. They have to summarize, they have to take the concept that they've already been explained, stops photosynthesis in an aquarium or whatever it was, and what would happen if we spilled a bunch of it into a pond. They're just making a comparison from one situation to another.
So
They're,
what's your descriptor?
Cause and effect.
so they're summarizing results and concepts.
Summarizing results and concepts, Rochelle?
From the same box, but I would most likely go with make basic inferences, base or logical predictions from data or observations.
Still
the-
level 2?
Yes.
We could agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So my 3s, Melissa?
Alyssa, yes, Alyssa. How did you get, oh crap, we're still low, higher than that.
Be quiet please so I can hear her, she's soft spoken.
We said level 3, understand, and we decided it would be explain, generalize, or connect ideas using supporting evidence.
Okay, explain, generalize, or connect ideas using supporting evidence. So what supporting evidence do you see in that problem?
Well, we kind of took it as, they gave them the information, they kind of told them what would happen, and then they had to apply with the information that they gave them
Yeah.
to a different scenario.
Okay, so that's your supporting evidence is what they've already told them what would happen?
Yes.
Okay. Another 3?
That
Melissa?
We said, Bree and I said, DOK 3, evaluate, because you have to describe, compare and contrast solution methods. So they're having to, first of all, they're having to read the whole thing. That's a lot right there. That's a lot of sentences. Then they have to think about multiple things before they even read the options. And we didn't have the answers, so we didn't know depth. Yes.
Any other 3s?
No, bad question.
Okay, question.
What are you comparing, where are we at, evaluate 3? What are you comparing and contrasting?
Sorry,
What
my,
solutions are you comparing and contrasting?
well, my pen moved. It was actually on-site evidence and about the logical argument for concepts and solutions.
I would,
That's citing evidence.
I would-
So what's
I
your
would-
evidence that you're citing?
It would be, the answers would be different scenarios of
Yeah.
ideally, because we don't know what the answers are.
Oh,
Different
so
scenarios of
you're
what
gonna
would have
have different
happened, and we would have had to prove it or disprove them, given what we know the question.
Any 2s want to move up to 3?
Both make sense.
3s want to move down to 2?
No.
we didn't raise our hand.
No.
Okay.
I
All
see
right.
both.
That's all we're going to do today. Now, the purpose of this is not so that we can get them all done and so that you can be perfectly in union with which ones they are. The purpose of this was this conversation that we had and digging into that matrix so that when you write your questions for your lesson plans, you can write levels 1, 2, and 3, really rich questions into your lesson plans, and more importantly, into your lessons in the fall, okay? Because that is my whole hope, that when I come in to observe you, and I observe the math teachers, but occasionally I go with Dr. West to the science classrooms, I want to see those levels 1, 2, and 3 questions. And I probably will have the matrix with me when I come. Okay? So, and y'all will have them with y'all also, right? So, that's the purpose of this. Any other comments about the conversations that we had? Because that's the key.
You mean they bring them all?
Shut up. I mean,
Here, you want me to say it for you? Go ahead and shut up.
any other conversations, comments? Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna say, I thought it was very valuable, and especially everybody, the way they reacted to others' answers, minus Quentin, was very respectful.
This is a very respectful group. I mean, it truly is it's a very safe place to share ideas and disagree agreeably. Actually,
So, if you had a concept of a particular tape, and would you do your questioning throughout, like maybe the pre-assessment at level 1, and then try to progress them all the way through?
level 1 is generally when you're assessing prior knowledge. What do they already know so I can proceed with my lesson? Do I need to back up? Yeah.
Right, so your ultimate goal is to be at least at level 3.
Yes.
And be successful at level 3 before you move on with a new concept and then start again.
yes. However, there could be some level 1s and 2s scattered in between.
Right.
Because you're up here at level 3 thinking, and then, okay, they don't understand this one thing, so you drop down to a level 1 to get them back up to
Right,
the.
you keep, it fluctuates, but your
Very.
ultimate goal is to, okay, we're at level 3, they're successful at level 3, now we can go on.
I don't know
The other
if,
concept.
just because they're successful at level 3, part of the time, doesn't mean you can go on to the next concept, that's what you mean, right? The
Yes.
next concept. But primarily, if they are answering your level 3 questions in depth and with richness of understanding, then yes, they're ready for the next concept. Brandon, did you have your hand up?
No, just some of the questions, based on the level of questions, can you say it also can depend on the type of answer choice that you give the student?
Absolutely. I don't know why, I do know why I told the girls to cut them off, but that was kind of dumb on my part, so I'm sorry. Any other comments?
I have a caveat.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
as I understand Ashley's question, it was about during class instruction, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but if you're doing a pretest, like we give you and we give your students, that has all of the levels in there, it's not
Okay.
just the level 1. So, in terms of pre-assessment, it depends on what kind of pre-assessment you're talking about.
And that's a great
That's the
point.
conversation I'd like to have, is the whole pre-assessment.
That's a great point, because if you give a pre-assessment that's all level 1, then you really don't know what they really know. You might know they know the basics, but they may know a whole lot more than that pre-assessment is showing you. Okay? So if you would please put those questions back in the bag. And this time you get to keep, I want your sheets back, because we may continue this. So pass your answer sheets up to the front, please.
No, that's.